Spending a night in a haunted house. This story takes place during the summer of my second year of middle school. It was a time filled with endless possibilities and mischievous plans. I had a group of 3 friends, slightly on the rebellious side, with whom I often hung out. As the summer break rolled on, we began discussing what thrilling adventure we could embark on next. We wanted to do something different, something that would break the monotony of our regular summer activities. The idea wasn't just to hang out at some ordinary place, we wanted to experience something truly out of the ordinary. We wanted excitement, and what could be more exciting than testing our bravery by spending a night in a place where others dared not go? That's when Nakamura, one of my friends, proposed an idea that immediately piqued our interest. His parents owned a real estate business, and there was a property under their management that had a dark past, a house with a reputation, where something terrible had happened. The house was still unsold, sitting there, a beacon of fear and mystery. Nakamura suggested we spend a night there, and the idea, as wild as it sounded, thrilled us. After some convincing, Nakamura managed to get permission from the real estate company for us to stay in the house for one night. Although the representative from the company agreed, I remember the uneasy expression on their face, as if they were aware of something that we were not. But we brushed it off, too excited by the adventure that lay ahead. We took the train to the house on the agreed day. The journey was filled with laughter and excitement. After all, the idea of spending a night in a haunted house was more exhilarating than frightening, especially because we were all together. When we finally arrived, the house stood before us, eerily silent, as if waiting. Inside, we decided to start the night with a small party, indulging in the food and drinks we had brought along. The electricity and water in the house had been cut off, so after our feast, we went to a nearby public bath to freshen up. Returning to the house, we gathered in the dark living room, sharing ghost stories to set the mood. But as the night grew deeper, something strange happened. The sliding door between the living room and the Japanese-style room was slightly ajar, just wide enough for a person to pass through. I asked if anyone had left it open, but everyone insisted they had closed it. I had mentally prepared myself for some supernatural occurrence, not wanting to appear scared in front of my friends, so I dismissed it and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a bizarre scene. One of our friends, Shota, was missing from his room. It was around 5 a.m., and I figured he might have stepped out to use the bathroom. But after about 10 minutes, Shota burst back into the room, his face pale and his eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave, now!" he shouted. "We have to go home right now." His urgency was unsettling, and seeing no other option, we quickly packed our things and left. On the train ride home, Shota finally told us what had happened. After we had all fallen asleep, he couldn't manage to drift off. As he lay awake, he began hearing footsteps, soft, but unmistakable, moving through the house. Then, there were sounds like growling, coming closer and closer. He tried to wake us, but none of us stirred, as if we were under a spell. Terrified, he had run out of the house. Even after hearing his story, we didn't believe him. We laughed it off as a product of his overactive imagination, attributing it to the scary stories we had been sharing the night before. But then, not long after that night, Shota was killed in a tragic accident, hit by a truck. The driver insisted that the steering wheel had moved on its own, something beyond his control. The unexplained occurrences stopped after Shota's death, but the fear lingered. A few days later, after I had returned to school, my mother confronted me with a stern look. "What have you been up to?" she demanded. "You're hiding something from me, aren't you?" I hadn't told her about our night in the haunted house, instead claiming I had stayed at a friend's place. But her piercing gaze and urgent questions broke me down, and I confessed everything. My mother then recounted the strange happenings at our house since that night. Every time I wasn't home, someone would knock on our door, yet no one would be standing outside when she checked. The knocking would grow louder and more insistent, and no matter how many times she asked who it was, there was no response. The sense of dread grew with each passing day. Fearing the worst, my mother, who had a sensitivity to spiritual matters, took me to a nearby shrine after consulting with a medium. There, I learned that the house we had stayed in was haunted by a powerful spirit, and Shota had been taken by it. The medium warned that I might be next if we didn't act quickly. After a stern rebuke for treating the spiritual world so carelessly, I underwent a purification ritual at the shrine. I was given a protective charm and a sacred paper with words I had to recite 3 times a day for 3 days. At first, as I began the recitations, I could hear faint voices trying to distract me, but I persevered. By the 3rd day, the voices were gone, and a heavy weight seemed to lift from me. When my friends and I later returned to the shrine to offer our thanks, the medium smiled with relief, saying, "You're lucky to be alive." I continued to visit the shrine every year to renew my protective charm, and I still keep that sacred paper. The experience changed me. I no longer seek out haunted places or tempt fate with the unknown. The world is full of things we do not understand, and some mysteries are better left unsolved. The Moving Doll. This chilling tale is a story passed down in my family, one that has become shrouded in mystery and fear over the years. My memory of it is hazy, as I was very young when it happened, but the details have been recounted to me many times by my family members. Our house was an old one, often filled with strange noises and eerie occurrences, earning it the reputation of being haunted. As a child, I was particularly frightened of my parents' bedroom on the 2nd floor. Even now, the memory of that room sends shivers down my spine. I was so terrified that I would cry every night, too scared to even climb the stairs. My grandfather, who was always kind to me, suggested I sleep in his room instead. Relieved to escape the terrifying upstairs, I quickly agreed. His room became my sanctuary, where I could finally feel safe. At night, I couldn't sleep without my favorite stuffed toy by my side. It was a comfort, a shield against the fear that haunted me. I had a doll named Chappie, a baby-faced doll with eyes that closed when it was laid down. During the day, I loved Chappie, treating it with affection. But as night fell, an inexplicable fear would grip me, and I couldn't bear to have it near me. I would ask my grandparents, or my older siblings, to put it away in the piano room, far from where I slept. However, every morning, I would wake to find Chappie back in my bed, resting on my chest as if it had never been moved. My siblings, much older than me, also found the doll unsettling. Eventually, they convinced my mother to get rid of it. She admitted that she had felt uneasy about the doll from the moment she first saw it, and reluctantly agreed to throw it away. I remember them joking about the doll, calling it Chucky instead of Chappie, and making light of the situation. They laughed, saying it was a cursed doll that might come back to haunt us. I didn't think much of it at the time, simply glad to be rid of something that had started to terrify me. But years later, something inexplicable happened. One day, my sister was cleaning the house when she found a black plastic bag tucked away in a cupboard near the family altar. Curious, she opened it, and what she saw made her scream in horror. My brother, who rushed to see what had caused the commotion, was equally shocked, and even my mother was left speechless. Inside the bag was Chappie, the doll we had thrown away years ago. It was intact, its limbs and face pushing against the plastic as if trying to break free. We had no explanation for how it had returned or who had placed it there. My siblings were certain that they had left the doll in the piano room every night, only to find it back in my bed the next morning. They had thrown it away with our mother, on the designated garbage collection day. So how had it come back? Determined to rid our house of Chappa for good, they took the doll to the backyard and burned it. Even now, no one in my family can explain how Chappa found its way back to us, or who had given it to me in the first place. The origins of the doll remain a mystery, as does the reason why I had been so attached to it, even calling myself by the same name when I was a child. Looking back, my family suspects that the doll may have been cursed, its presence tied to the strange occurrences in our house. I still wonder if I somehow brought it home myself, unknowingly inviting something sinister into our lives.